Hey guys, thanks for coming back to Psychotalk. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides to join a cult. Nobody thinks they're the type of person who could be controlled, manipulated, broken down until they do anything for a stranger they just met. And yet, it happens every single day. To intelligent people, to successful people, to people exactly like you. Think about that for a second. What if the very things you believe protect you, your intelligence, your confidence, your desire to be a good person? What if those were the exact weaknesses a predator would use to trap you? Let me tell you about Deborah Layton. She was brilliant, educated, a young woman from a wealthy family who had everything going for her. And by the age of 25, she was standing in the jungles of Guyana, watching her friends dig their own graves, while a madman named Jim Jones screamed about revolutionary suicide through crackling loudspeakers. How did she get there? The answer begins with something psychologists call the vulnerability window. See, Deborah joined the People's Temple during a period of personal crisis. Her mother was dying. Her sense of purpose was shattered. And Jim Jones? He didn't approach her with talk of death or control. No. He spoke about equality, about justice, about changing the world. He made her feel like she'd finally found her tribe. This is how it always starts. The neuroscience behind this is chilling. When humans experience social isolation or existential anxiety, our prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for critical thinking, actually becomes less active. Meanwhile, our limbic system, the emotional center, goes into overdrive. We become neurologically primed to attach to anyone who offers us certainty. Cult leaders don't recruit the weak. They recruit the wounded. And at some point in your life, you will be wounded too. Let that sink in. But vulnerability is just the door. What keeps people trapped inside is something far more sinister. It's called cognitive dissonance manipulation. And once you understand it, you'll never look at your own decisions the same way again. Consider the case of Steven Hassan. Today, he's one of the world's leading cult experts. But in 1974, he was a college student who got recruited by the Moonies, the unification church led by Sun Myung Moon. Steven wasn't stupid. He wasn't desperate. He was a straight-A student with plans to become a writer. The Moonies didn't ask him to abandon his family on day one. They asked him to attend a dinner. Just a dinner. Then a weekend retreat. Then to skip one class. Then another. Each step was so small, so reasonable, that by the time Steven realized he was fundraising 18 hours a day and hadn't spoken to his parents in months, he couldn't admit he'd made a mistake. Here's the terrifying psychology. Once you've invested time, money, or identity into something, your brain will perform incredible gymnastics to justify that investment. Leon Festinger's research on cognitive dissonance proved that the more we sacrifice for a belief, the more fiercely we defend it. Not despite the sacrifice, because of it. The cult doesn't need to convince you to stay. Your own mind does the work for them. Steven spent 2.5 years giving everything he had to Sun Myung Moon. He would have died for the man. And the only reason he escaped was a car accident that allowed his family to arrange a deprogramming intervention. But even that isn't the darkest mechanism. What I'm about to tell you is something most people can't accept, because it implicates something we all believe makes us good people. The most powerful cult recruitment tool isn't fear. It isn't trauma bonding. It's love. In 1997, 39 people laid down on bunk beds in a mansion in Rancho Santa Fe, California. They put bags over their heads. And they swallowed phenobarbital mixed with applesauce, convinced that a spacecraft following the Hale-Bopp comet was coming to take their souls to a higher plane. Heaven's Gate. The leader, Marshall Applewhite, didn't rule through terror. Former members who left the cult before the mass suicide describe an environment of genuine warmth, of deep connection, of family. Applewhite created something that most people spend their entire lives searching for: unconditional belonging. And here's the counterintuitive truth that will disturb you. The people who died weren't trying to escape misery. Many of them recorded cheerful goodbye videos. They smiled. They laughed. They genuinely believed they were going somewhere better. This is the neuroscience of oxytocin weaponization. When we experience profound social bonding, Our brains release oxytocin, the same chemical that bonds mothers to their infants. This hormone doesn't just make us feel good, it makes us blind. Studies show that oxytocin actually suppresses activity in the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. When we feel loved, we literally cannot perceive danger. Think about that for a second. The safer you feel in a group, the less capable you are of recognizing that the group might destroy you. Now, here's the hidden truth that most people never discover. The part that reframes everything I've just told you. We talk about cults as if they're rare, as if they're something that happens to other people in strange compounds with bizarre rituals. But the mechanisms I've described, vulnerability targeting, cognitive dissonance manipulation, oxytocin weaponization, these aren't unique to cults. They're everywhere. Multi-level marketing companies use the same love-bombing techniques as the Moonies. Political extremist groups use the same small commitment escalations as Scientology. Abusive relationships follow the same isolation patterns as Jim Jones used in Guyana. Dr. Robert Cialdini's research on influence identified 6 universal principles of persuasion that cult leaders exploit: reciprocity, commitment, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. Every single one of these principles is used on you every day. The only difference between a cult and a manipulative corporation is scale. The brain doesn't distinguish between a charismatic spiritual leader and a charismatic boss who makes you feel special. The dopamine pathways that fire when Jim Jones told Deborah Layton she was chosen, those same pathways fire when your toxic mentor tells you you're different from everyone else. We're all vulnerable to this, every single one of us. Because these techniques don't exploit our weaknesses, they exploit our humanity. Research from Dr. Alexandra Stein, who herself escaped a political cult, reveals that cult bonding creates what's called a disorganized attachment. Your nervous system becomes trapped in a constant state of fear and love, terror and need. Brain scans of cult survivors show patterns remarkably similar to those of abuse victims and hostages. The psychological damage isn't just emotional, it's structural. Your neural pathways literally reshape themselves around the trauma bond. This is why leaving a cult feels like dying, because neurologically, a part of you is. So let me speak directly to you now. You might be watching this thinking you're immune, thinking this could never happen to someone like you. But I need you to understand something. The most intelligent, successful people are often the easiest targets, because they can't believe they'd ever fall for it. Their arrogance is their vulnerability. Here are 3 warning signs that you might already be caught in something dangerous. First, are you being isolated from people who knew you before? Cult groups systematically separate members from outside relationships. If someone new in your life is constantly creating conflict between you and your old friends or family, pay attention. Second, is there an us versus them mentality being reinforced? Cults survive by making members believe the outside world is dangerous, corrupted, or inferior. If you're being told that people who question your group just don't understand, that's not enlightenment, that's control. Third, and this is the most important one, are you afraid of what would happen if you left? Not logistically afraid, existentially afraid. If the thought of walking away fills you with dread, shame, or a sense that you would lose yourself, that fear isn't coming from you. It was put there. The truth is, cults don't look like cults from the inside. They look like families, like communities, like the answer to everything you've been searching for. And that's exactly what makes them so dangerous. The human need to belong is one of the most powerful forces in our psychology. We will do almost anything to feel like we matter, to feel like we're part of something greater than ourselves. Cult leaders know this. They've always known this. And in a world where loneliness is an epidemic, where traditional communities are collapsing, where people are more isolated than ever before, the predators have never had more prey. Stay vigilant, question everything, and remember, the moment you believe you could never be manipulated is the moment you become most vulnerable to it. Thanks for staying till the end. Please like and subscribe.